Now, for further analysis on the matter, we have with us Professor Hussein Adik, an expert in Israeli and American affairs, who is joining us from the occupied Jerusalem. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. Let me here start by asking you, what does the scale of and pace of recent Israeli strikes in Gaza suggest about Israel's military true objectives at this stage of the war?
Israel wants to record a military achievement, and it also wants to achieve the goals announced as in the Godown operation. There were statements at the military level in Israel that the Godown operation is almost bearing its fruits, and these military strikes. These ongoing military strikes come very heavy and tense in the recent time to express these stance, but there is real political will now at the US side and Israel to reach this truce and for a 60-day deal. And what's blocking this deal is that Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, is stalling and buying more time for political internal consideration related to the majority in the Israeli Knesset that is lacking now after the religious parties deteriorated.
Now, what do you have of targeting the targeting of civilians at aid distribution points, and how does that affect the credibility of Israel's claims of only militants?
This Israeli narrative is being told since day one, and now it's completely fake before the international community, before the entire world, as they are spreading lies and falsifying the evidence, as they are targeting women and children and the elderly. All civilian facilities are being targeted in breach to the Geneva Convention that protects civilians in the event of war or conflict or armed conflict. And unfortunately, this Israeli narrative is now very revealed before the entire world. That's why we see the shift in the international public opinion opposing Israel. A large portion now of the international public opinion sees Israel as a threat to the international peace and security.
Now, the rise in death toll and the blockage of humanitarian aid, is Israel violating the international humanitarian law, and what mechanism exists to hold it accountable for that?
Yes, the starvation weapon, the containing and the breaching the ICJ resolutions are all crimes against the international laws and against humanity. As the 1989 convention defines the types of crimes, the crimes against humanity, the genocide, the hostilities, it defines all of that. And what Israel is committing right now in the Gaza Strip using starvation and the killing is a literal crime against humanity and a war crime in violation of all international conventions, as they should be prosecuted for. And the South Africa lawsuit before the ICJ makes this very evident. The legal means, there are several means, including the ICJ, which has already opened, and arrest warrants were issued for Netanyahu and the defense minister, but these were not applied because the international community is now subject to political consideration. And for some democratic states in which these lawsuits are applicable against war crimes, have already verified the lawsuits.
Now, what are the strategic implications of the reported security incident in Khan Yunis that led to Israeli casualties?
Strategically, this threatened the influence of the um, Israeli forces, as the Palestinian resistance is still able to deal damage to the Israeli army, and this was evident by the strikes that killed Israeli soldiers, and this reflected it negatively in on the Israeli public opinion, as it undermined the confidence in the military, and it pushes to the only solution, which is the negotiation and the political horizons to admitting and recognizing the legitimate Palestinian rights in accordance with the two-state solution, and that the military solution will never bring peace and stability to the state of Israel and the neighboring countries.
Right. The UNRWA has said that it has enough food to feed the whole Gaza population, even children in need. Now, from your point of view, how can international organizations such as the UNRWA operate effectively under siege conditions, particularly Israel's siege? And what's preventing aid from crossing from the opening? How is Israel doing that?
The humanitarian aid would never take access to the Gaza Strip except with Israeli permission, and the ongoing siege, starvation, and bombardment prevents the UNRWA and the international organizations from carrying their job. Around 70% of the Gaza Strip area is now occupied by the Israeli military. How could the international organization staff move in the Gaza Strip where 60% of the area is occupied? And that's why we should go to a ceasefire and allow a humanitarian aid access that is sustainable, and allowing also the staff of these humanitarian and relief workers to work and serve the deprived and the starved populations who lack medicine, food, and water, and basic life essentials.
Now, to what extent is the rising Gaza death toll shape or reflect on regional diplomacy, particularly Egypt and its mediation efforts in this ceasefire talks?
The mediators are carrying out distinguished efforts to reach a ceasefire, but the real dilemma and the problems lies in the occupation that is not paying any attention to the death toll or for the victims of women and children and elderly being killed on a daily basis in the Gaza Strip. The US pressures should be exerted and intensified on Benjamin Netanyahu to force him to sign the agreement and announce a permanent end to the war and starting a true political path that would lead to peace and stability in the region.
Now, what impact is the continued destruction of civilian infrastructure have on the long-term prospects of Gaza's recovery and, of course, the reconstruction of it?
Undoubtedly, the Gaza Strip has become now an uninhabitable area, and destroying the infrastructure and the environment, pollution and climate, and the Gaza Strip, as now the air and soil are highly deteriorated, would affect the future of the Strip to become an uninhabitable area even in the future, requiring massive financial and human resources, and also more time to reach the phase of recovery. And with the ongoing Israeli siege, the recovery and the reconstruction is now very difficult and almost impossible.
All right. That was Professor Hussein Adik from the occupied Jerusalem and expert in Israeli and American affairs. We thank you so much for joining us on Q News.